Another Tuesday. That means we're back with another episode of Dynasty Theory. As always, we are extremely grateful for everybody that tunes in. Week 4 was a good one. Here to discuss it, as always, Mitch Sorensen. What's up, Mitch?
What's going on? I was telling you before the show, like every player you have on the show sheet, I'm really excited to talk about. And normally I'll go in because I know there's gonna be rapid fire, so I'll like put a little idea in there. And when I don't want to this time, I'm just gonna fully go off the cup because I love all of these guys, so I'm gonna rank them stupidly high.
And then we got the Phillies fan himself, the Phillies fanatic, if you will. We said we'll get you out of here at a normal time tonight, Dan. Of course, we're joined by Dan Lamagna. What's up, man?
Man, I'm switching gears to the Dynasty brain here. It's been a junior high 14-0 win from the Little Tykes to the Phillies game. And now it's, man, there was a lot of week 4 excitement. And Mitch is right, man. You have a nice list put together tonight.
Well, it kind of worked out well because we didn't do the episode last week. And I sent you guys the show notes in advance. And then we had some things pop up. But some of the first topic, it worked out perfectly because a lot of the guys that I wanted to discuss last week, they came through in week 4 and performed at a high level. So let's get right into it. Rookie takeover. This year, we have so many guys contributing, maybe not necessarily in week 1, and then we'll get to that with the first player here, but guys that are stepping up early and not just playing well, playing at an elite level from a production standpoint, from a fantasy standpoint, and as a result, the inflated dynasty values. So, Mitch, I want to start with the first guy here because you and I, we were super high on him.
Yep.
Going into the NFL draft, premier landing spot, 3rd round draft capital to the Miami Dolphins. That is, and the pronunciation has changed several times here on this young man's name, but Devon Achane, I think I got that right.
That's right. Yep.
He came out in week 3, just exploded. One of the premier fantasy games that I can remember, over 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, just, a game against the Denver Broncos defense, which is, let's be honest, it's like Swiss cheese, but the team scores 70 points. And then he comes out here in week 4 and not quite what he did in week 3, but still on minimal touches, over 100 rushing yards, a couple touchdowns. So Devon Achane, Mitch, what are your thoughts overall here? Yeah, you feel a little bit of vindication, don't you?
A little bit. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. And then you look at his stats, and it's like 25 or 27 carries for like 300 yards. And he has like 4 touchdowns. And you're like, how is this possible? But this is also what this offense does. It's why we buy into Tyreek and Waddle and Mostert before this, is because they can produce this thing because they have Mike McDaniel, calling the plays, who's a brilliant play caller. So for me, I'm all over Achane, and I sent him out in an offer before this weekend's games. I was a little greedy. It was like, I think it was like Burks and Achane for Jacobs and Ridley, something like that. Something that was, asking a little bit, but now it was declined. Now that manager came to me. He was like, hey, can we revisit that trade? And I'm like, sorry, man, that boat sailed.
Yeah, it's always interesting. And it's happened both ways where you might send an offer out. I'll send something to Dan, just using you for an example. And we're like, okay, well, it didn't work out for this week. Let's revisit. And then they'll come back and be like, oh, yeah, let's try that deal. I'm good now. Oh, the price has changed. And of course, it goes both ways, right? You kind of take that risk that the player's not going to perform or an injury or whatever may happen. But Dan, Achane, I don't know that you were necessarily as high on him as Mitch and myself coming into the rookie process and then post NFL draft leading to our rookie drafts. But what are your thoughts on what you've seen over the last 2 weeks and that tremendous bounce back really from a value perspective after not even being active week 1?
I love the bounce back. And if you have him on a roster, boy, what an added value right now that you probably didn't expect at the running back position. I love what they're doing in Miami. You know, Mitch touched on that, the creativity of the offense, and I think he's going to be a weapon going forward. I temper expectations a little bit. Like, I realize he's the, leading scorer the last 2 weeks, but like 203 yards in 1 week. I mean, it's a little bit inflated there. I think he only had 8 carries last game and 3 receptions. So that's like, 11 touches there. Now, boom, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. He maximized that. Like, that team is so fast. Between Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, like, they are putting guys in motion and hitting you at all different angles. And they hit the Bills with Achane last week. Now, Buffalo played a good game. I give that team credit. They're heading in a good direction. So I think you want to temper expectations, but you definitely got a weapon. Is it a sell high now, though, guys? Like, could you get – what was that trade you were talking about? You said you threw Josh Jacobs' name out there before.
Yeah, I was going to get Jacobs and Ridley for Achane, and I believe it was Burks, but I could be off on that wide receiver I'd be trading away.
Like, that's a little tempting to me there. Like Jacobs was warming up this last game. Like, he was starting to look like old Jacobs again a little bit there. I don't know what's going on with Calvin Ridley. I like to think there's going to be better days ahead, but not saying that's a deal you do because Achane's 21 years old, but it could be worth talking about. JB seems to be feeling it maybe. There's a little Calvin Ridley in the distance there.
That's Christian Kirk.
Oh, Christian, you're pointing in a different direction. That's right. I forgot about that. Kirk.
I told you I'm the only person on the planet that has a framed 8x11 of Christian Kirk, and I live in Pittsburgh. Like, what are we doing here, guys? But listen, Achane, out of rookie running backs with at least 5 targets, there's only 4 that have at least 1.00 yards per route run. It's Bijan, then Achane, then Roshan, then Gibbs. The big play potential. Yes, we're not going to count on 200 yards rushing every game. We're not going to count on 2 touchdowns and 100 yards on 11 touches. But if we can get that 1.5 to 1.75 fantasy points per touch, give us 10 to 12 touches. And that's what we talked about coming into the season. Agreed. Now, were the expectations, we were hit hard in week 1, Mitch. It was a little depressing. All right. But now we're back and we talk about the big play potential. 65.7% of his rushing yardage is on breakaway plays. So gains of at least 15 yards. Next highest rookie, Tyjae Spears at only 32%. And I say only 32%. That's still extremely high. Mm-hmm. Out of all running backs, not just rookies, he's number 2, only behind Breece Hall. And we see those big chunk plays that Breece Hall. He's super elusive. By far, you look at elusive ratings on whatever scale, whatever grading system you want to look at, he's at the top of the charts. He is not pass blocked once. So you always have that in the back of your mind, especially Dan. Hey, is there going to be a player? We're really excited for him from a rushing and receiving perspective, but is he going to be a liability in the passing game because he can't block? This team does not ask their running backs outside of really Alec Ingold, who's a fullback, to block in the passing game. And he's number 1 in the NFL in yards after contact per attempt with at least 20 rushing attempts at 6.93.
Real man.
He is elusive. He is compact. Now, what happens if he really gets lit up? Is he going to be like that? Well, like a Mr. Potato Head with all his parts flying up everywhere. Who knows? But in the meantime, there's nothing but excitement for this kid. So let me get to it. The rapid fire here.
Yep.
Mitch, we're going to start with you. So we're going to go Mitch, Dan.
Okay.
Achane or Breece Hall?
I'll take Breece.
Breece.
Achane or ETN?
ETN.
Yeah. I'll go say, but I don't know if ETN's even good.
Achane or Swift?
Achane.
Yep, same.
Listen, we were going Mitch first every time there. Now let's.
He was delaying too long, so I hopped in. I hopped in.
That was my bad.
Now this set, let's start with Dan. We're gonna go cross positionally here. 12-team super flex. +6, -4 scoring for quarterbacks. So 6 points for passing touchdowns, -4 for interceptions. Just a typical start 10 league. Achane or Justin Fields?
HN.
Yeah, I think it's HN, which is so funny.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. And this is with Justin Fields, who just put up a top 3, top 4 week for fantasy points.
With some good
blew
blocking,
20
JB, you would have done that versus Denver as well.
Listen, you give me too much credit. I'd have a broken leg on the very first play. All right, Dan, Achane or Deshaun Watson? Same settings.
Watson.
Mitch, Achane or DK Metcalf?
Metcalf.
And then Dan, Achane or Devontae Smith?
HN.
All right, so some variety there, some mixing and matching, varying results, but I think that kind of shows you where the stratosphere at this point, the company that Achane is keeping, right? 12-team super flex, Achane or Brock Purdy?
HN.
Purdy.
Mixed feelings there. But if anything, so I think what this tells us, now it could be skewed a little bit because maybe one person saying Achane has a lot of Achane rostered and the person answering the other players might not, but that happens on all the different outlets that we look at and all the different valuations that we look at. But if anything, this could tell us there is a market. If you're looking to trade Achane away, there's a market to acquire him at this inflated cost. If you're looking to acquire him, there might be some folks that are willing to just get that bump in value now because, maybe they're just looking to cash in. And Jeremy at Dynasty Daddy, we love you too, man. Love me some Dynasty Theory. I'm pulling up all these trades that they're coming right from the daddy himself over there at Dynasty Daddy. Here, quick question from Mike. 12-team, start 10, PPR, 0.75 tight end premium, sending James Conner and Mike Evans for Gibbs.
Send them, man. Ship them.
He also has Kyron Williams, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Keenan, DK, Christian Kirk, 324 firsts. He doesn't have his own 24, 25 firsts. This is 1 and 3. He lost Higgins. It's certainly worth the attempt here. But I think what's interesting here with the additional context, he's 1 and 3, doesn't have his own 24 first, the potential trade partner. So it doesn't make sense to try to, not to compete because of the lack of draft capital next year. So maybe they do kind of double down and dig their heels in, and Gibbs isn't producing the way fantasy managers want, 9 to 10 fantasy points per game. Give me the production in Connor and Evans is something that somebody could be thinking. So I think it's a fair offer. I think it's a strong offer if this league mate and they're looking to add that points to their roster. I'm going to make it a clean sweep, though. Give me Gibbs. It hasn't been exactly what we want so far, but I think that utilization is going to continue to see an uptick. So that was the chair. Just so you guys know, that was the chair. If you heard anything squeak, I wasn't passing gas over here. I'll let you know if it's me. All right. So from a pick perspective, Mitch, would you send, where are you if 1-for-1 Achane or a 24 first?
Where's that? My contending first, actual contender, real contender for him. If I'm hoping to make playoffs, no, I'm not doing it.
Okay. Now, if you're a real contender, let's say you're 4-0, first in all play, first in
probably have
points.
Achane already, but it's okay. Keep going.
Would you move your first and second?
No, I don't think it'll cost that much, to be honest with you.
Dan?
I love trading draft picks. So, I take the first and the second. I want to win this year. I'd probably get something else thrown in that, though. I agree with Mitch. I think a late first is enough.
Yeah, that's where we are. I can say I would not move Achane for a late first. And Mitch, if you are 4-0 and you are in that position that I previously mentioned with your all play percentage being top of the charts, and you sent me your first and second, I can't say with 100% certainty that I'd be accepting if I had Achane.
You wouldn't if I sent it. You would if anyone else would. But
Now,
not if I
that's
do.
not true. We got a trade done earlier today, but let's not slow things down here.
Yeah,
Another rookie. Well,
let me just one like cherry on top to the closing thought there. Through 4 weeks, again, there's some perspective, but all in all, like Achane is in that category with Gibbs right now. Bijan probably gets more touches in the in the run game, which is nice. But the state of the running back position as a whole, like I look at these guys who through the last couple of weeks when Achane's went off, it's an ugly running back group. So from a dynasty perspective, hey, if I'm going to get 3-4 catches a game and he's 22 years old, that's attractive on my roster right now before having most of the guys on this list that I don't know if they're going to have a job next year. That's not everybody. I mean, there's some other attractive running backs, but he's put himself in a very safe, comfortable category on a dynasty roster.
And forget about safe from a weekly production standpoint, because let's say he has.
I'm talking safe next year, John.
No. I agree. But he has shown that he can. Let's say they add another running back next year, and Mostert and Jeff Wilson, they're an afterthought. Obviously, Jeff Wilson's been on IR up to this point, but Achane has shown that he can just do this in a committee. So give him that 10 to 12 touches and he's okay. But let's say his weekly floor is 0. Okay. How many other running backs right now can we confidently say they could drop a 40 burger right there? So we could look at consistency all we want. What's 10 to 12 points getting us? Javonte Williams, James Cook, DeAndre Swift obviously can get into those 20s. But you saw it in really his first full game popping off 50-some points. Is that going to happen on a weekly basis? No. But the weekly risk is far outweighed by the weekly reward in that boom potential.
Yeah. As long as he's getting snaps and involved, hey, if he gets those 3-4 catches a game and gets some touches in a running game, that floor is not going to kill you compared to some of those examples that you had. Like, I think he could definitely help you.
Really quick before we transition to the next rookie.
It's been 18 minutes.
No.
You said a fast show.
You get questions in the chat. I'm not going to ignore people, Mitch. I'm not you who just ignores trade offers, right?
If they're horrible, I'll ignore them every day of the week.
Just decline it.
Don't send bad offers.
I told you. I phrased it differently, but I'll keep it PG. I said I don't do that crap, Mitch. All right. Is Dobbs a reliable wide receiver? Like, let's say, can we count on him as our wide receiver 3?
For me, give it one more week. What we saw is Musgrave got hurt very early in that game last week. Christian Watson came in. He had the touchdown, but, he was in a limited role. Aaron Jones was also in a limited role. Give it one more week to see how this offense is. If you really want to believe he's reliable, then sure. But for me, he's someone I'm okay holding off on for 1 week, because even if he is putting up another 8-target game, he's not going to be that expensive to go get, even if he does it for 1 more week. So I'm willing to wait.
Yeah, I think you define reliable too. Like, I think that's legitimately a role he has, but I don't think it's going to be week to week. I think it's going to be matchup dependent, the hot hand, how well Jordan Love's playing. I think he'll have a few more of those games, but I wouldn't expect it every single week.
All right. Well, Mitch, I saw a tweet from you earlier today.
Beautiful tweet.
That CJ.
I thought it'd get more reaction. I'm a little upset that it didn't, to be honest with you.
That CJ Stroud. You know what? I saw it. I don't even know if I liked it.
I know he probably didn't. Hater.
Man, I know. But CJ Stroud is a top 8 dynasty quarterback, from the words of Mitchell Sorensen.
Yep.
Defend that.
Defend it. It's true. He is better than Trevor Lawrence. I'm sorry, he is. Like, we've hyped up Trevor Lawrence because he was a better prospect coming into the NFL. We do it with these dynasty players all the time. We still do it with Kyle Pitts to this day. Hey, we loved him in college. He's going to be amazing in the NFL. And Trevor Lawrence has actually somewhat lived up to it. But watch CJ. All that I'm going to say is just no one watches a lot of Houston Texans games, right? Watch one. The dude, like, his release is so fast, and every single pass he throws is on target. Dude is just accurate. And I think what happened for me going into this draft is we hear a lot of we've had this kind of quarterback before, right? He's really accurate, but nothing is perfect, right? He doesn't have that elite trait. Well, I'm telling you, his release is elite. And everything that offense is doing right now is awesome. He's playing with a banged up offensive line and is doing amazing. Tell me what every single quarterback's excuse is right now in the NFL. Well, he's not good because the offensive line is terrible. The offensive line for the Texans is terrible. He's going out there beating people with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Like, dude is awesome.
Now, let me say, there was a lot of discourse prior to the NFL draft and post NFL draft on who did you prefer, Bryce Young or CJ Stroud? And Dan, I think you were pretty vocal about being on that Bryce Young train. You know, that S2 score. Well, that S2 score is in the garbage right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's in the garbage because it doesn't matter. But anyway, Dan, what do you think about CJ Stroud?
Well, CJB, you've coached me well over the years and have taught me not to have any take lock and reevaluate the situations. And, you know, I normally love a good challenge flag, but with Mitch here's take, man, my challenge flag is tucked way deep. Ooh. It's not coming anywhere near out right now because he is spot on. I mean, that college game versus Georgia that we says, hey, if that's a CJ Stroud that's going pro when he played those elite guys and showed us he could run and move, that's what we're seeing in the National Football League. And Mitch is probably even understating the state of that offensive line because he's been doing this without a run game. Pierce ran a little bit better this week, but the 3 weeks before, there was no run game taking the pressure off. They had 3-4 starters out on the O-line, and he's performing. He's gotten the best out of Nico Collins. I think you do got to give these receivers some credit because Nico Collins and Tank Dell are really stepping up. You know, Schultz is a solid role player in there at tight end. There's nowhere to go but up. I'm really interested to see as this O-line gets better throughout the year and he keeps getting more experience. And then, boy, you give him an offseason. And I think Mitch's hottest take there was, you know, not just top 8, but putting him over Trevor Lawrence. As much as I love Trevor Lawrence, I mean, we are overhyping a little bit. It hasn't been consistent, and there's been enough time to really produce, and you get Ridley and you have an extra weapon. Stroud has surpassed that in 4 weeks. I don't want to overreact to 4 weeks, but I think he's showing us that this really looks for real.
One of 3 quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks with 0 interceptions. The other 2, Brock Purdy, and as everybody guessed, Joshua Dobbs. Number 3 in yards per attempt at 8, only behind Brock Purdy and Tua. He moves the chains. 3rd most first downs among quarterbacks, only behind Tua and Stafford. Supporting weapons, he has been able to do that. Nico Collins, wide receiver 7, you heard me right, through the first month of the season, and Tank Dell at wide receiver 23 in total points. And Houston is a top 10 offense in the percent of drives they have as an offense that end in a score. That is pretty incredible when you take into account the offensive line. Two of their starters, I believe, were missing against the Steelers. Yep. You take into account the lack of a run game, like Dan brought up, and just a brand new head coach in D'Amico Ryans and the rookie quarterback himself with weapons that are either undersized or haven't really produced up to this point in the NFL. You know, in all of this, with my man Dalton Schultz really being a little contributor there. And it's going everywhere else, but even though Dalton had a pretty nice game here against the Steelers, but still just super impressive. So it leads us into the rapid fire. So Mitch, let's start with you. Stroud or Lawrence?
Stroud.
Now, let me say, this is ignoring cost because in most situations you can probably get a plus with Stroud, but this is just one of the other.
This is what I'm doing. Yep.
Dan?
Stroud, and I'm going to try for that after the show, gentlemen.
Man, Trevor's an old veteran now. Nobody wants him. All right, Stroud or, man, he just keeps coming up. Stroud or Justin Fields?
So, really, JP? Really?
How about Justin Fields and the 105 in next year's draft or Stroud? I'm taking Stroud.
I take Matthew Stafford over Justin Fields. Never mind Stroud.
All right, and then Stroud or Bryce Young?
Stroud.
I threw that in as a little jab to Dan.
Thanks.
Cross positionally, 12-team super flex, start 3 wide receivers, +6, -4 for quarterback scoring. Dan, Stroud or Tyreek Hill?
Stroud.
Stroud or CD Lamb?
Go after my heart, man. Start 3 receivers.
I'll go CD on that one.
Yeah, I'll go with my Cowboy love. That's tough though.
All right, Dan, since Mitch jumped the gun there, let's start with you here. CJ Stroud or Kenneth Walker?
CJ Stroud.
Yeah, same.
Stroud or JT?
Stroud.
Stroud or Brees Hall?
Stroud.
All right. So, you talk about meteoric rises. CJ Stroud, obviously, he has, like, the fact that he has thrown no interceptions up to this point on a team that has had to throw the ball because their defense, except against the Steelers, because the Steelers make every defense look elite. A battle for the ages would be the Broncos defense versus the Steelers offense. What would happen? Like, I don't know. Something's got to give. Looking some of the comments here. Ryan, 0 interceptions through 4 weeks. Balling out. CJ Stroud, that is. Greg says, my rookie draft strategy this summer when selecting the second rookie quarterback was to alternate Young and Stroud. Wish I had 100% Stroud right now. Me too, Greg. Mm-hmm. And then Drew says, is Fields worth anything?
No.
This is the week to sell.
Yeah.
There's truthers out there.
Here's the thing. If you can't sell after this week, and just from a production standpoint, you're going to be stuck with them.
Yep.
You're going to be stuck with them. Can you get a late first in a 12-team super flex league?
No.
I don't.
If you're a quarterback desperate team, maybe.
Yeah. If you're a contender, you're not trading for Fields with your first. You're going to trade for someone else that will actually, be good.
Yeah, the schedule's a little soft coming up. I mean, there could still be some points. I mean, he's not getting benched anytime soon, so he's gonna score. But this is the sell window.
Do you think there's any trade possibility here? I mean, Atlanta's the one that would make sense, I think.
Yeah, there should be. I would hope there would be, but I wonder if that whole coaching staff and front office with the Bears are just waiting the next 10 weeks before they're fired.
Yeah. Okay. All right, man. There's only one tight end in the NFL right now. Only one, rookie or veteran, with at least 20 targets and over 2 yards per route run, demanding a target on a staggering 26% of his routes. That is the man, Sam Laporta. Mm-hmm. Dan, have you been impressed? Listen, during the offseason, during our rookie mock episodes, I said this is going to be just an incredible class. It's going to be historic. And Sam Laporta, he has had a historic first month.
He is carrying that torch.
But hey, the torch is still burning, though, gentlemen. The torch is still burning.
He's carrying the tight end position here, JB. You hyped up every tight end on the list there pre-draft, pal.
From a value perspective, where's Dalton Kincaid? Top 6. Where's Luke Musgrave? Top 13, top 14.
You're only saying value because every other tight end is terrible.
It doesn't matter. Then
it drops.
But hey, still an incredible historic run to start the season for Sam Laporta. So the fact that we're still using the word historic here, I'm going to take that lap. I'm going to take that. But don't ask me about my Michael Mayer shares, please. It's very upsetting right now. Okay, so Mitch, where is he for you on the tight end spectrum? Because, is there any such thing right now as too high? Like, what would you willingly add? This question came up in the Discord the other day.
Mm-hmm. Make sure you tell Mitch, JB, not to be a Homer Lions fan here. Okay, we want non-biased analysis.
Wait, Dan's really bringing that point up?
Hey, we're not talking about the Cowboys.
That's fair.
That's when Mitch gives me the lecture, Yeah.
But we got this question, and it was a great conversation. What are you really going to add to Sam Laporta for Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews at this point?
For me, if I have the option to get all three of them, right? I think I want Andrews first, Laporta second, Kelce last out of those three. If I have Laporta, I would not trade him for Kelce under any circumstance. I don't think with Andrews, I could see myself moving Laporta for Andrews just because I still think he is the head of the tight end world right now, but that's how close it is. I mean, Laporta is a top 3 guy, and he could be tight end 1. Really, if you are in a rebuild at all, he should be your tight end 1 because he is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And look, if he keeps putting up points at an 85% of the rate that he has already, going into next season, he's tight end 1.
Dan,
And-
I think that's very, a valid conversation there and valid point. So Dan, this is another one that pops up constantly, and it was happening over the last few weeks, and you really saw it swing because things haven't changed in Atlanta. And now the question is, in a 12-team Superflex, 2 PPR for tight ends, typical start 10, what do you need added to Kyle Pitts to get your Sam Laporta?
Something very good. I mean, like
CD Lamb.
I mean, it's got to be something really, probably a first-round draft pick. I mean, because like Pitts is you're holding on to him, hoping he someday gets a quarterback. He has no. I mean, he's better than a bum because he's young. Like a lot of these other guys in the tight end front,
he is better than a bum. That is
and when I say bum, it's like, I mean, look at the state of the tight end position here. I mean, you don't want Zach Ertz, you don't want Jonnu Smith, even David Njoku. I mean, like Tyler Conklin, Cade Otton, like they're okay guys, but that's the extent of what I would want Kyle Pitts more than, because I don't want those guys. But after that, man, the tight end position's ugly. So Mitch is right. I mean, other than Mark Andrews, you don't really want anyone on that list. I still love Kincaid, but the way the Bills are using him, I would much rather have Sam Laporta. And that pains me to say that, but I would trade my Kincaid shares for Laporta just based on the situation.
The disrespect for Evan Ingram still. He's what?
He's coming close to dust. He's 29. He's a wide receiver. He's a 29-year-old wide receiver, JB. That is what he is, a 29-year-old wide receiver. You tell me any 29-year-old wide receivers on your roster, you are looking to move them, JB, unless you're contending. I love Ingram this year if I'm a contender, but that's about it. Give me Sam Laporta by far in Dynasty.
Nobody said Ingram over Laporta, but you're saying that you just went down to David Njoku, Cade Otton, saying the state of the tight end position is garbage, and in fact it is.
Your best argument's a 29-year-old wide receiver playing tight end.
If the wide receivers that you're talking about here hypothetically got me 2 points per reception, yeah, I would want them on my team. But I don't know about
but in Dynasty at age 29, that's a perfect sell window right now of Evan Ingram. Go get yourself Laporta.
That is not the point. What are you talking about?
You put him in the conversation of very good tight ends. You put him in the. I felt you put him in the Laporta class.
No.
I just make sure. I'm making sure. I'm protecting you here.
Go over to patreon.com/Dynasty Theory. Look at the tiers. All right. They're not in the same tier, but you also just got done speaking about the tight end position as a whole and brought up David Njoku, Cade Otton. Did you not just do that?
I did, but the best example you had to throw in the mix, your best example is Evan Ingram, who's a 29-year-old wide receiver playing tight end.
Because he was a name that wasn't mentioned. Why wouldn't you mention the tight end 4 on the season right now? Why wouldn't he be mentioned at all?
Because he's 29. This is a Dynasty Theory, not redraft weekly.
All right, that was funny.
That's all. I mean, this is my age discrimination moment. As the senior member of this podcast, I have age issues, ageism.
I don't know how we got here, guys. Because
take us back, man. Take us back. Bring us back.
Didn't you just acquire Darren Waller off of me for a trade involving a first 2 weeks ago?
It was a win now, and I got something else in that deal.
And now it became a lose now because you have Darren Waller and you didn't go after Evan Ingram.
Yeah, but I got something else. Well, you gave me something else in that with Waller.
My guy, Kyron Williams.
It's Kyron. Thank you, JB. See how he left that out, Mitch? How convenient that was.
All right, well, listen, I need to reiterate because I don't need anybody saying, well, I heard that idiot on Dynasty Theory. I do not have Evan Ingram in the same tier as Sam Laporta. Let that be known. Somehow that got misconstrued here.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm just saying he was a name that has not been mentioned. Before that, we mentioned Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Laporta, Kincaid, Pitts, and Njoku. I mean, again, and you brought up. I want to give the guy some credit here, okay?
So if anyone heard that typing in the background for a second, that was John removing Evan Ingram from the Laporta tier, just so you know.
I wasn't typing anything. My gosh. Oh, man.
Hey, to bring us back, we are all on the same page, though. I mean, he is rookie takeover from our analysis going into the draft to the prospect he was to the Lions giving up on Hawkinson, who's no slouch. He's the top tight end, I believe, right now over 4 weeks. And then the situation he had the George Kittle endorsement, like everything is up, and his performance is backing it up right now on the field.
All right, Mitch, are you taking Laporta over Pitts, Kelsey, and Hawkinson?
Yes.
Not together, separately. Because next Dan will say you're taking Laporta over all three.
Give it a week.
Dan, what about you?
Overall, let me ask.
All right, cross positionally, 12-team Superflex, 2 PPR for tight ends, +6, -4 for quarterback scoring. Dan, Laporta or Jordan Love?
Laporta.
Same.
Laporta or Ayuk?
Laporta.
Same.
Laporta or Gibbs?
Ooh. It's a tie. Oh.
I need an answer, Dan.
I got to take Laporta right now.
12-team, I'm keeping Gibbs. 14-team, I'll go Laporta.
I'm going to go Evan Ingram. No, I'm going to go Laporta over Gibbs for the record. I did, Ben. I have age issues, ageism. FF coach Dan.
Love you, Ben.
That might be. We might talk to Dynasty Theory HR tomorrow. Okay, so Sam Laporta, highly sought after, of course. From a pick perspective, in 2 PPR, as things stand today, I'd be right around that 24,105.
Yep, same.
That top 4 right now, unless Caleb Williams and his dad end up staying at USC. You got Caleb, we got Drake, we got Harrison, and we got Brock. I'm going to take all of them. But then the conversation comes into play. Well, why not take Laporta over Brock? So we'll see. But I think comfortably I would move the 24,105 right now in either start 2 tight ends or 2 PPR for tight ends. We talked about this gentleman a couple weeks ago, but I just want to bring him up very quickly because he's still hot. He's on fire. Is he going to continue it when Cooper Kupp comes back? But Puka Nacua, he is tied with Devontae Adams for the most targets in the league, 50. He is at 2.98 yards per route run through 1 month. That is elite. He is up there right next to Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Adams, Keenan, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, Dan, quick rapid fire here. 12-team Superflex, 2 PPR, whatever. Puka or Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy.
Same.
Puka or Tony Pollard?
Puka.
Pollard.
Puka, and based on FantasyCalc, this is where we are, based on actual trades that have gone through, Puka or Dak Prescott? Dak. And then Puka or T. Higgins? We were wondering, somebody in the chat said last week, I bet you we see, and this is after the injury took place, I bet you we see a Puka for T. Higgins. They're right next to each other right now.
I take Puka.
I'll take Puka.
Ooh.
Me and T have never really got along.
I ever since you took Denzel Mims over him, but I don't bring up old. Oh, that was a jab by me. I apologize. All right, so again, not to get into too much detail there, but let's talk about him a little bit real quick. Does this continue when Cooper Kupp comes back?
I think it continues, but you lose. I mean, Kupp's going to be the man, so. I'd rather a Sun God or a Lamb over Puka because I do think he's going to be that, number 2 receiver there. But there's enough volume. Stafford's playing out of his mind. It's the way the offense is run. I think it's going to continue. And just clarification, Mitch, I think with the Pollard, I know you raised the eyebrows. I mean, I love Tony Pollard. I'm a Cowboys fan. I just stop looking at next year. He's going to be a 27-year-old receiver versus a 22-year-old wide receiver. So it's that age thing again. The running backs at some point, it's gonna,
All right, I'm glad to see you're such an ageist now. I love
Mitch,
it.
somebody abducted Dan. It's like October's here. Spooky season is officially upon us. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That is an alien over there. It is not really Dan Lamagna, because now he's talking about youth and draft picks. What world do we live in?
I don't know, but I don't like it.
So, Mitch, realistically speaking, from a production standpoint, Puka still top 24 rest of season when Cup comes back?
Close to, I think so. I think you could compare him and Devontae Smith really close to each other. I think we'll see Cup come in and do the A.J. Brown sort of thing. Probably more targets than A.J. Brown, maybe less touchdowns. But
maybe more volume, though.
Yeah, definitely more volume. And then Puka will do his thing. I really like it. I like his price point now, and I'm willing to go get him.
Supporting facts here, like Tutu Atwell's 20 right now. So the number 2 receiver, who is not as good as Puka, is a top 24 receiver for the Rams right now.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
And I mean, you could look at it once you get outside of the, upper echelon receivers. It's just a big cluster, really.
I will say this here: if there was one concerning fact about Puka, is Stafford's 35. Like how many years do we get of Matthew Stafford? I worry about when that chapter changes, just because you don't know the future of the Rams. It's a cat, I don't know. Maybe they get salary cap and they find that quarterback, but
yeah, that's definitely a concern. It's a valid point when you look at some of these wide receivers that are up there in terms of dynasty value and the quarterback position and maybe uncertainty in the near future, like a Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. We have the situation this year, and then is Aaron Rodgers back next year? Then what happens? We got Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill. They're okay from a quarterback perspective. DK Metcalf, Stephon Diggs. And then you look at Devontae Adams, who's playing with Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo, Dan Lamagna. So, you look at, but then age comes into play. Devontae Adams is 30. Puka's 22, 23. So, Mitch, would you make that same trade today that we made 1 or 2 weeks ago? It was my 25 first for Puka in a 12-team start for.
In that league, yes. Because that league, I'm trying to secure that 101 no matter what. So, yeah, I would do that in that league. If that was my only option, I would assume I could get more now. But if that's my only option for a trade, I would still do it.
All right, valid point. All right, we're going to remove the one player here because I don't think anybody's considering a bounce back for Justin Fields. But Dan, bounce back or time to bounce on Joe Burrow?
Bounce back in 2024? Does that count?
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah, I think he definitely bounces back, but I would be concerned about it being this season.
I mean, Joe Burrow, he's putting himself in a situation where he's going to be one of those ideal trade candidates for, anybody really, but especially contenders or rebuilding teams, right?
He's a guy long-term. Like, I still love Joe Burrow, and I would want him. If there's a player of, equal value, I'm not sure who the comparison is. Maybe Justin Herbert. I am worried a little bit about Burrow's body breaking down. Every single year he's going in with an injury. What's going to be the long-term effects? Again, I'm not letting that scare me away now, but, if I'm going after a Herbert who just seems a lot healthier, although his coach is an idiot, that's the only problem there. But at least Kellen Moore's got that offense clicking.
I wouldn't be surprised this week if maybe we saw a Burrow for CJ Stroud somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, I actually think there might be situations where people would add to Joe Burrow as a contender. Now, I'm not advocating for this, but I'm just saying I think we could see it. Let's clear the air there as well. For Anthony Richardson, for Lamar Jackson, certainly Tua because of the production. We could see somebody tearing off of and tearing down from Joe Burrow to get Kirk Cousins plus with a large plus, but a plus that would not have been possible a month ago.
I think you need to be really careful with a Burrow type of team too, because you were probably going to the season because you had Burrow. You're like, I'm a contender. I have Burrow. But now Burrow isn't as good. Are you still a contender if Burrow isn't good? Or was your thinking going into the season that Burrow was going to be one of the reasons why you're a contender, right? And so if he's not as good, then all of a sudden does trading him still keep you as a contender? Or is him being bad just making you a middling team like everyone else in Dynasty? So I think it's really, really tough. For me, I don't have a lot of Burrow, but I'm not going to move him for a discount right now because I'm just 100% willing to sell off this year if I have to with a Burrow team, because I know next year is going to be fine without a doubt. And so, it's one of those things to where I'm not going to cripple my team in order to compete this year just because I have Burrow who has a bad leg right now.
Now, I think there are a few situations where maybe you came in, maybe you had Burrow, Purdy, and Russell Wilson, and you're still staying afloat depending on how you play those matchups. But let's say you don't have your 24 first. You're 3-1 or 4-0. You have Joe Burrow and maybe a Russell Wilson and Brock Purdy, but then you have kind of an older roster because you were looking to contend. Do you, like I said earlier, do you double down? Do you dig your heels in? Or do you kind of play it out over the next few weeks and see what happens?
I compete. Yeah, that one I'm competing. I'm probably trying to get Lamar.
Okay.
I'm concerned the market's not there for Burrow either.
That's
because for some reason, like most often in past years of Dynasty, when a guy's deal with injuries or in a little slump, people are going after him. Nobody's going after my Burrow shares, and I've got a few. I'm not even getting a nibble right now.
Greg says he got a Tua for Burrow offer today. I had them in the same tier. And honestly, there's no situation right now where I trade my Tua for a Burrow.
Yeah. Same.
It's just,
From an offense is too potent.
From a longer term perspective, for an immediate production perspective, it's just something that doesn't make sense. So Burrow is just one of those interesting cases right now. A few years ago when Dak went out in week 4 or 5 or whenever it was and missed the rest of the season, I specifically remember Dan jumping on the pod and saying that he got an offer of like Ben Roethlisberger plus a piece for his Dak. I like what's going on here. And it's crazy the sick things that I remember like that have nothing to do with anything. But of course, I'm going to remember that, Dan. But it's always interesting when the higher end dynasty quarterbacks aren't necessarily producing. It opens up some opportunities. So I would get some feelers out there for Joe Burrow, even if you are contending, if you have the other pieces available at quarterback to get you through these struggles, but then let's say this Bengals team loses 2-3 in a row. Is there any thought of shutting him down?
Could happen.
Is that crazy?
Yeah. I mean, in that division, they'll probably need 5 or 6 losses because that division's terrible. But yeah, it could happen. Definitely by week 12, week 13, you could not have him for the fantasy playoffs. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's because of where he is as a quarterback in a dynasty asset, he's not going to drop too low from a cost perspective, but the production is certainly going to be potentially crippling to your team if you were relying on that high-end points on a weekly basis. All right. Who's more likely to struggle moving forward? Mitch, Ramondre Stevenson, he's currently at 10.8 points per game PPR. That's running back 29 on a per game basis. Or Javonte Williams, currently 8.7 PPR points per game through 3 weeks. I wanted to get that injury game out of there. That's running back 35 on a per game basis. So who is likely to struggle moving forward?
Javonte. I mean, he has the injury history. He has all that behind him. I do believe the Patriots are going to get better throughout the season. I don't have a whole lot of faith that Broncos team is going to get better. While they could score more points, I don't really know if that's going to help Javonte score more points. So I think Javonte struggles are going to continue. And I think by the end of the year, he could be a running back 3 to 4 in Dynasty, as far as like between 36 and 50 as far as rankings go.
I'm not sure I agree, Mitch. I'm worried about Javonte's health. But let's just say Javonte's healthy for the sake of this conversation. If he's healthy, going into last game, I was optimistic that his workload was going to continue to increase and he might actually be good. And unfortunately, like 2 plays into the game or 2 carries and he hurts his hip or whatever he did and he's out. But New England's really ugly right now. I mean, I'm a Belichick guy. I'm a Ramondre guy. But this running game's worse than a year ago. And Mac Jones is not getting any better himself. And there's really no weapons at wide receiver. Like this is kind of an ugly offense. So like I haven't seen anything that makes me think it's going to get better in New England. Whereas in Denver, that offense has to score, and they have kind of scored. The running game backs have produced to a degree. I just concerned about his health. If he's healthy, I like Javonte. If not, then I'm with you, Mitch.
I agree with Dan. I give the edge to Javonte from a potential turn it around. But he's got to stay healthy, and that is a big if. If that's your concern, I think it's a very valid concern. But with Ramondre Stevenson, that New England offense, they're coming off a game against that great Dallas defense. But throughout the season, out of 51 qualifying running backs, Ramondre Stevenson ranks 50th in terms of yards after contact per attempt. The only running back he's ahead of, Tony Jones.
Oh.
And then in that same metric, Javonte Williams, not great, but he's 37th out of 51. So, but if I'm sitting here right now, based on Ramondre Stevenson on FantasyCalc, these are based on actual trades. Again, trades that you can go into DynastyDaddy.com, look at the trade database. It tells you exactly what the league settings are, the scoring, and it shows you where there's some opportunities to pivot. Ramondre Stevenson, running back 16 versus Javonte Williams at running back 22. I would gladly move Ramondre for Javonte Williams plus any small piece. And I think it's possible. All right, one last topic here. Similar topic between Dak at quarterback 25 per game or Trevor Lawrence at quarterback 22 per game. Who is likely to continue to struggle?
I don't think either of them continue to struggle. I really don't. I think they're two very talented quarterbacks on two very good football teams. I think you're having some early season bumps here and there, but I think they're both going to have big games ahead.
I think it depends how you classify struggle. I think Dak has been good this year, to be honest, as far as quarterbacks go. But the only issue is that defense is so good, they don't have to score a lot of points. And so he's not having to try to do 300-yard games yet. So for me,
struggle fantasy-wise.
Yeah, and I get that. I knew that's kind of what you're going with. So I'm going to say Dak because I think Dak's already been good. It's just that defense is so good, it's made it so they haven't had to score points. I just know that defense doesn't really hold week over week over week. We can see 4 weeks from now a little bit of a different thing happening to where they're having to put up points. I just don't have any faith in the Jags, to be honest with you.
A few things here that I found interesting when digging into both these quarterbacks. I was shocked by this. Dak Prescott through 4 weeks has the most red zone passing attempts in the NFL.
Huh. That's interesting.
32.
Yeah, they've struggled there, though, unfortunately.
3 touchdowns. So a little less than 10% conversion rate from attempts to touchdowns. For context, the great Russell Wilson has 7 touchdowns on 24 red zone attempts. So almost a third. So 10% versus 33%. But again, I talked about it with CJ Stroud and then Houston Texans offense. Dallas is third in terms of ending their drives with a score, 53%. More often than not, they are scoring either a field goal or a touchdown when their offense possesses the ball. There are 31 quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks. Dak is tied with Bryce Young for the lowest ADOT, average depth of target, at 6.2. For context, he was at 8.7 last year. So in my head, I thought, what's the difference between last year and this year? Kellen Moore left and went to the Chargers. Last year, Justin Herbert was near the bottom at 7. He's towards the top at 9.1 this year. So I think the way they're attacking it, and certainly, it comes into play as well that Dak hasn't had to go out there and necessarily win games, so he doesn't have to drive the ball down the field, but that's still coming into play, and we care from a fantasy perspective. And then for Trevor Lawrence, I talked about 32 red zone attempts for Dak, 12 red zone passing attempts for Trevor Lawrence. Average depth of target down from 7.8 to 7.2. Touchdown rate down from 4.3 to 2.8. even with the weapons he has, even with the number of passing attempts they've had to go out there and throw, I would say out of the two, if I had to pick, Trevor Lawrence will continue to struggle more so than Dak Prescott. And I do think it's because that defense is not going to continue down this path of 2 touchdowns per game, as good as they are. So that's the way I would lean there. Anything else? Any issues?
No. Final thoughts.
Dan, for the 220th time, before you log off and watch your Philadelphia, I almost said Eagles. Oh my goodness. Philadelphia Phillies here. Such an eclectic taste for his sports teams. He's Georgia Bulldogs, Dallas Cowboys, the Phillies, the Lakers.
I think it's the fantasy sports player in me, it's like an individual players growing up, and I just stuck, those teams. But yeah, man, big week here. Phillies in the playoffs, Cowboys, Niners is like the biggest regular season game of the year. It's pretty huge. But final thoughts, man, just week 5. You got the bye weeks. Don't forget about them. Browns, Chargers, Seahawks, Buccaneers, all on a bye week. So really be careful with your rosters. Don't panic, but maybe look for some trade opportunities to fill those bye week gaps. There is a game in London again. It's Jacksonville, Buffalo, so be ready for that 9:30 a.m. London game as well.
Mitch, what do you got for everybody?
Gonna say now is the time to look at the bottom teams because everyone wants to get that 101 draft pick, right? So people are willing to shed what they need to shed. I'm not gonna be like, hey, look at this trade that I got from someone else who was a bottom team. I'm a bottom team in this situation. John's in the league as well, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe not in that one. I traded Derrick Henry and Hollywood Brown for a first, a second, and a third. Now, I know that value isn't great, but it helps me shed points. And if that means that I get the 101 instead of the 102, then I'm getting equal value in that trade at the end of the day. So I think you could get a lot of trades like that done right now because people want to lock in that 101 draft pick.
Now, I will say, be very aware of what the bottom of your standings currently look like and what the potential points look like, because there are going to be people over the next few weeks that are trying to shed points, but that 101, 102, 103 might very well be locked in, and you're trying to catch up, but now you are just bleeding value to try to get there, but you still end up with the 105 or 106. So just be very aware of how that plays out over the next few weeks and be realistic. Because I always say be realistic about your chances to win, but also be realistic about your chances to get that 101. So you're like, oh yeah, my team stinks, but does it stink enough?
It might not. It might be more of a drink me kind of stink.
There you go. Oh. All right. Well, anyway, hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. Like I said, the 220th episode, week 4 in the books. I can't believe we're a month into the season already. Week 5 is going to be a fun one. Like Dan said, the bye weeks, the injuries, things are piling up, and you're looking at your teams, and sometimes it can get ugly. But hopefully you enjoy the show. We'll be back next week. For Mitch Sorensen, Dan Lamagna, I'm John Bauer. Everybody have a great week. Peace.